If you're an athlete in back pain and you think what I'm about to do would absolutely take out your lower back, and there's no way you would actually do this, you're in the right place, because what I'm about to show you is not how you jump straight into a Jefferson curl loaded at over 50% of your body weight, but I'm going to show you the exact progression, what steps you got to take to go from back pain, literal back pain, after practice, maybe even as soon as you wake up, as soon as you bend. I started having back pain here at 20 years old, and now I'm able to do Jefferson curls with over 50% of my body weight with ease. But the goal of this video is to show you every single step I took to actually get there, and show you some things you might be missing out on, because it's not a bunch of bird dogs you gotta do or a bunch of side planks that are going to get you out of back pain. It is a simpler route, in my opinion, a route that takes some time but will actually give you the long-term results. So let's start with the first exercise, and the first exercise is a simple back extension hold. It's as simple as that, because what you see here is we gotta activate our back muscles, but we're not actually moving our spine. We're just holding this position. 2 minutes is the goal. Once you're able to hold 2 minutes without feeling pain, you will start to feel the burn after a certain amount of time. That's when you can start assisting yourself and lowering in your pain-free range of motion. And as we get stronger here, this is a process. This is not happening from one day to the other. We get stronger, and ultimately we can take off our hands and start doing it without assistance. Now, this is an exercise that directly targets the lower back, and I wanted to start with this exercise because, right, it targets the lower back. But the formula to get pain-free is not only targeting the lower back, but also what's above and below the lower back. So the hips and the mid back, the upper back. So we're gonna look at exercises that open up the front of our hip. A couch stretch. We're gonna open up the inner hips. Pancake. We're gonna open up the outer hips. Pigeon push-up. We're gonna open up the back of our hips with an elephant walks. That's it. That's how we open up our hips. Pretty simple. But again, I'm gonna show you all progressions, all steps you gotta take to make sure you master these movements. That's the key to them being able to go into a loaded Jefferson curl over 50% of your body weight. Now, I'm not saying you have to work up to over 50% of your body weight in a loaded Jefferson curl, but 25% of your body weight is a safe goal to work towards. So as I said, the simplest thing you can do is start with the back extension hold and progress from there. But at the same time, we want to start opening up our hips, because if our hips are tight, and with athletes that's often the case, your low back suffers. So what we're going to do is to open up the front of our hips with a couch stretch. You can simply start in this lower position right here, because you might be too tight to start with this. So you start here and you already press your foot into the wall, press your shin into the wall, and from here you slowly progress and you really open up those hip flexors, those quads, and take off pressure of your low back. And once you're able to get your shoulders to the wall, that's when you know, okay, now my mobility is actually getting better. Now I'm working towards the right direction. As we open up the front of our hip, we want to open up the back side too. And we do that with the elephant walk. Simply extending one leg at a time, squeezing the quads, coming back, squeezing the quads. And again, the end goal is to get palms to floor, but you don't have to start there if that's too hard for you. You can simply start by elevating your hands and then doing the elephant walk from here. And some may even have to start from an even higher elevation. And the good thing about the elephant walk is, if you look at your low back, now it's rounding, but there's no motion in the back. It's just our legs. So we get used to that rounded spine while opening up our hamstrings, the backside of our hip. Now we're going to look at how to open up the inner and outer hips. For the inner hips, we can start with something like a loaded butterfly, just pushing our knees down in this position, trying to stay upright, keeping a straight back, not rounding forwards, and pushing the knees down, and you will feel a great stretch here in your groin. And once we're more comfortable in this position, you start adding load, and from here, you don't even have to push down because the weight is actually doing the work for you. And now you can start adding motion to it, really opening up and strengthening that groin area that often causes so many issues. So with the loaded butterfly, we're really opening up that area here. And now with a standing pancake, we're going to target more of those adductors here. We're going to target, you're going to feel it here, just on the side of your knee. And if you feel like, okay, wow, my knee is about to explode or whatever, the key is to have your feet strong into the ground, then squeezing your quads. And now you can start to slowly lower yourself with your quads flexed. But if even this is too much for you, you can simply start with your hands as assistance. Same thing, feet strong into the ground, quads squeezed. And from here, you just start to lower yourself, just pulsing in that position until you feel more comfortable going into a wider stance without assistance and lowering yourself. The ultimate goal is then to get head to floor in a standing pancake. And that's when you also know, okay, now my inner hips are actually strong and long. So we open up the front of our hips with the couch stretch. We open up the back side of our hip with the elephant walk. And we open up the inner hips with the loaded butterfly and the standing pancake. Now what's left is to open up those outer hips. And that's pretty simple to do. You sit down on the floor. Now you let your knees drop into a 90-degree position here and 90-degree position here. And from here, you turn towards the side where the outside of your hip is on the floor. And now what we're going to do is, maybe this is even too much, maybe you get into this position and you feel an intense stretch here through the outside of your hip. And that's already great. Then hold this position for at least 1 minute, really pushing that knee more into the ground, and you'll feel the stretch even more. And as we progress in this exercise, we want to start to get our chest to the knee, really pushing that knee into the floor. And if you're stuck here, stay at this position for a few seconds, push your knee more into the floor, and try to go a little bit lower and lower. And over time, once you're able to get chest to knee, you now know, perfect, the outside of my hip is really mobile too. So by opening up all these areas below the low back, we're making sure, okay, the low back gets some relief, less pressure on the low back, more movement freedom. But we can also accelerate that progress by getting into more extreme positions like an ATG split squat, really opening up the front of the hip here. By getting into this position, we're stretching out our hip flexors like they've never been stretched out before. And that's how we accelerate the progress. Another exercise to accelerate your progress towards a pain-free lower back is the seated good morning. And this is why. As we get into that lower position with a straight back, we're stretching out the glutes, strengthening the low back by resisting rounding, and then coming back up with the strength of our glutes, and all at the same time while opening up those inner hamstrings and adductors as we spread out our legs and we keep our knees out. We don't cave in the knees as we get down. We keep our knees out. We lower, straight back, boom. That's it. And that's how we progress towards more low back strength as well as glute strength, explosiveness, getting strong in that deep hip flexion position. But again, this exercise is universally scalable. Elevate the incline, no weight, and just move as far as you can. Keep a straight back. As soon as you start getting lower and you feel, oh shit, my back is rounding, or at best you film yourself, see, is my low back actually rounding? Then what you have to do, elevate the incline and only go as far as where you're able to keep your low back straight, and then start adding weight with dumbbells. Take dumbbells, hold them here. Make sure that your knee is behind your heel. So you don't want to have your heel here behind your knee. Your knee has to be behind the heel. Why we do that is because if you had your heel behind your knee, as you get into position, boom, you start falling over. But if we have the heels in front of our knee, we can push into the ground and make sure we don't fall over, but we're actually working with our glutes, with our low back, stretching out those adductors, inner hamstrings. And as we add load with dumbbells, we can easily progress that. Just like this. Easy. Another thing you could do is also to sit on the edge of a bench, which allows you to have a little bit more freedom where you're holding the dumbbells. Obviously, this is not optimal with my feet, but you know what I mean. Just like this, keeping this straight, keeping the low back straight. And that's how we progress a seated good morning to a level where you have low back strength, where you have glutes that are able to support your low back, and where you have opened up adductors. So with the seated good mornings, we could already strengthen the low back extremely well. And if you don't have access to a back extension machine, it's completely fine to only do the seated good mornings. But if you have access to a back extension machine, you want to use both. And with the back extension machine, as said in the beginning, you start by just holding this top position here, activating the low back muscles. We want to strengthen the low back muscles directly as well, because if the low back muscles, in comparison to your legs, to your upper chest, to your lats, whatever, your shoulders, is weak, it's not going to end well. The lower back is literally in the center of your body. It's key for acceleration. It's key for explosiveness. And obviously, it's going to hold you back if it hurts. So we want to strengthen the low back with the simple progression from holding this to assisted to unassisted, and then ultimately you can also load this position. We stay with the back extension machine, but now we're going to go in sideways. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this is a gem for your low back and for your rotational strength as well. So what you're going to do is lift your hands up to your head. You can even start here. This just makes it harder. And then what you're going to do is lower just as far as you can. If this causes pain already, stay here and get strong just by holding this position. But over time, you want to be able to move your spine laterally, really get that stretch and come back up with the strength of your QL muscle. QL muscle is a muscle that attaches from here to your lower back, to your lower spine. So it's responsible not only to keep your lower spine stable and safe, but also if you're adding motion to that spine, and if you're a contact sport athlete, an athlete in general, you're going to add motion to that spine 100% when running, kicking, whatever, moving around. So you got to be strong with those muscles that are responsible in lateral motions. So strengthening the QL is absolutely essential. But again, if you don't have access to a back extension machine, just get to a wall, and I hope you have a wall somewhere around you. If not, we have a serious problem. But here we go. Wall QL extension. Lifting the hands up makes it harder. If you're just here with the hands, it's pretty easy. And as you straighten your arms completely, it gets even much harder. So now that we've strengthened both the back side, the low back directly, we strengthen the QL muscles, the side of our back, we can also strengthen our abs now. But we don't just do simple crunches like this. This is not effective. So we're gonna do L-sit leg raises. If this is too hard, we can simply start by sitting on the floor and lifting one leg at a time, contracting the core, squeezing the quads, holding that position, coming back down. And as you progress, you can then start to hold L-sit completely, and this is really going to strengthen your core and your hip flexors. Now that we've protected the lower back in the front, side, and actually strengthened it directly, we can now start to add in something like a trap 3 raise that targets the area, the muscles just above your lower back. So now we're going above your lower back, strengthening that upper and mid back. And obviously you can start adding load to this motion, but I'm telling you, this is one of the hardest exercises. Even just adding 2 to 3 kg will have you sweating like crazy. And then last but not least, as you've seen in the beginning, we want to introduce our back, our spine to rounding, because it's just a natural motion. We don't want to avoid spine bending, because if we're in our sport, contact sport, we're moving around, our spine is going to bend. If we want to pick up something, we don't move like robots. We're going to bend our spine, and it's meant to bend. So what we can do if we're in back pain and we really can't bend the spine, as soon as you do this, it's like, oof. We start to introduce the rounding really gradually with a really elevated elephant walk, as said in the beginning, going lower and lower. And as you come palms to floor or close to palms to floor, you can start adding weight to that exercise. So you start really gradually rounding at your upper back, rounding your mid back, completely rounding the spine, all comfortable, squeezing the quads, and then coming back up. This is how you start introducing loading. So as we get more comfortable rounding the spine, we can start adding weight and doing the exact motion just like this. This is called the Jefferson curl, and this is the exact movement I did at the beginning with 40 kg, over 50% of my body weight. But this is not where you start. You start with little weights and progressively move up. 25% of your body weight is a safe goal to work towards. As you strengthen your low back in that bottom position, it's other muscles, deeper back muscles that get activated, and that's when you strengthen your spine really, really effectively. Now, I know this is a lot of information and it may be overwhelming to start with. You don't know exactly where to start, but the key is to try and work through every single one of these exercises at least once a week. Stay in your pain-free range. Try to progress from week to week, and you'll see progressions in your hip mobility, in your low back strength, on the side, on the lateral movements, and you feel more confident just moving. And if you want all of these exercises combined into a full program that gives you form videos, regressions, video guides, and everything you need to know about your whole body from ankle, knee, hip, up to your head, check out the first link in my bio. And as always, keep believing today, and see you in the next video.